Hello and welcome to this discussion on your IP of future with Creative First. Our first speaker today is actor, screenwriter, and producer Himanshu Malik. Himanshu started his acting career with the film Kama Sutra, A Tale of Love, and gained recognition with his portrayal of Abhyangan, a wealthy Canadian industrialist in the 2001 romance Tumbin. His other notable work includes Jungle, Khwahish, and Rogue. He began his career in music videos, most notably among them was Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan's Afreen with Lisa Ray. He turned filmmaker in 2012, writing and directing his first short feature, QED. QED is a 45-minute short featurette about a detective failing to crack a case, was well received at the festival circuit and by the indie film industry. Our second speaker, who's joined us for many of our discussions, is Jamshed Mistry. He's an experienced counsel and founder of the International Legal Alliance. He's also a member of the Bombay Bar Association, the Intellectual Property Rights Practitioners Association, Maximum Lawyer Group, and associate member of the Canadian Bar Association, British Columbia branch. He's also an advisory board member of the South Asian Fashion Week in Vancouver and the Vancouver International South Asian Film Festival. Himanshu and Jamshed, welcome to this discussion.
Hi. Thank you for having us here.
Thank you.
Himanshu, audiences, especially in metros, are watching films irrespective of language. Do you think this is the first time when films are becoming pan-India films?
Yes, absolutely. I think it is quite incredible that all all these films from different languages, regional languages, are now made at a scale where they can be received by every audience, and they're all dubbed in different languages. And I think the game has actually changed now in a big way.
Right. And in the initial stages of your career, you've made several appearances in music videos. What advice or information would you like to impart to others seeking similar opportunities, specifically pertaining to various legalities involved? Are there any notable learning experiences you've had?
Back in those days, it was all a very cottage industry kind of space where everybody was like all word of mouth kind, and even the legal paperwork was never really, it was never really, nobody really bothered much with it or really read it. It was just like, But I think with time, as in the last few years, with the changing scenario, I think it's very critical that every talent, whether you're a model, you're an actor, should have a legal support with them always, because there's so many small things which they can miss out on, and later, you're in a in a bad place as far as that job is concerned, and this can be really it can be really crippling to be in a bad place legally, and the thing about this is that the for all it spoils relationships, it spoils, it creates obstacles in your own career, because for all the person who has probably made you sign that contract has probably done it from his perspective, and there's nothing wrong in what they've what they have kind of expected for you to deliver. So I think over time is very important to have legal support, and in the end, it's important to have your own set of information within yourself to understand what am I doing, what am I getting, and how I should process things.
Right. Jamshed, what are the salient features of a contract, especially for talent who don't have legal support? What are the basic things that they should look out for?
I'll just go back a little bit to what Himanshu said, and I think that's very important to understand that perspective, that he was right, and cottage industry probably was an interesting word. I mean, we were at a stage, where nothing was available in India. I mean, I remember as even a law student and as a lawyer, I had to sort of compulsorily look at foreign precedents for a lot of, what we would normally consider sort of domestic contracts. So I think that's absolutely right. Things which we used to have people coming and saying that, oh, if you had a contract more than a page, they would have looked at you, very curiously, and they wouldn't even be aware of words like, so if you ask that, did you have an arbitration clause, they would look perplexed and puzzled. As one, top actor or actress, as they're now called, called me up and said, she said, I really don't know what all that is about. So, these things which we take completely for granted today. But I think, again, as things have changed, we have become far more, in line or in tune with international sort of, best practices. So, essentially, what one has to remember is that if you sign or do anything within India, there is something called the Indian Contract Act. And that really sets the tone, that says that both the parties, whether it's the producer or an actor or a model or an agency or whoever it is, has to be competent to contract, which means you should be of a particular age, not of unsound mind. All these things are very important. And of course, there is the first part of a contract which actually says why you've entered into a contract, called the recital clause, and then you sort of get into the terms and conditions of the contract, and then important clauses like the intellectual property rights, the payment clauses, then of course whether you have an alternate dispute or which court or courts have jurisdiction, and things like that. And then of course you could also have schedules to the contract which give details of, for example, payment and other things, in case of late payment, interest, and things like that. So oh yes, and the other part is whether it's exclusive or non-exclusive, depending upon the type of shoot, show, or program that you're contracted for.
Himanshu, tell us about your journey, into direction. Your first movie was Chitrakoot. The whole shift from being an actor to a director.
It was quite a quite a natural, organic shift. And I think as an actor, you have this tendency to pick up stories, to listen to stories, to look at characters, to absorb. It's just a habit you build over the years, and that kind of then translates into expressing those stories. And it was fairly the natural path of things for me, of evolution, of growth. And you see, acting in India is still not. It's still, there's a very thin slice of actors who get to do the quality work that they want to do, and they can support themselves from it. So essentially, it makes most, the ones who cannot be in that thin slice to be unhappy, and either you can't support yourself or you would do work that you do not like. So it is natural, and I think the Indian industry needs storytellers more than anything else. There are not enough good. There are lots of great actors, good writers, good DOPs, good, but there are not enough good storytellers. So I think I kind of sensed that, and I said, I think I want to tell stories, and that's how it happened.
Right. Jamshed, for disbursement of royalties following an exploitation of work, how does one negotiate and navigate such agreements pertaining to rights? Could you give us a little bit about the specifics?
So, as you know, royalty is something that is relatively new to India, especially in the acting scenario. It isn't new as far as music is concerned. Right from HMV records and everyone, the concept of royalty as a singer or playback or whatever, that was always there. But in the Copyrights Act and the change in the copyrights regime has now brought that also into focus. There is currently, I have to state the legal position. There is litigation which is in place, and whether producers are liable to pay royalties or not, or that's something which is in court. and yet to be decided. But I think by and large, if you look at the global scenario, I think what you really sort of need to do is you need to understand, for example, one of the best systems in place is the US system, where you have actors and others. From the creative side, who have got royalties because of their creative inputs, and then it is shared and it is in perpetuity, which means it's like a pension. And we've had and we've spoken to some, and some of whom are even in India, who have actually managed to live and work in India based on the royalties that they have made in Hollywood movies. And on the other,
so if I might just add, when I made Chitrakoot, that's one of the early things I did. I gave everybody a royalty package, because we were a low budget film, but I wanted the right talent to work on the film, and I knew I couldn't afford it, so I kind of gave everybody a kind of percentage on the royalties, and I intend to follow up on it. And I think it's, a lot of talent is happy to get part money. Sorry, Jamshed, I'm interrupting you. I hope that's okay. A part monetary advantage, and then part royalty, which is the problem here. Jamshed comes is in reporting, or what do you call, now when I will exploit my film, to get the right numbers from from the platform where my film is gone, is where the problem will be. In India, leaving out a couple of international companies like Sony and Amazon, nobody gives you the right numbers. That is where the problem begins. And then if I don't get the right numbers, I don't get my right royalty, how will I push it ahead? So I think that is one systemic thing that has to change, where there's so many these Indian firms that you can give your material in, and they might sign a contract with you and say, okay, this is the royalty, this is your revenue share, but you'll see nothing. You'll see nothing. They will just, they will never talk to you again.
Himanshu, tell us a little bit more about what you mean by royalty package.
So I gave all my head of departments and my actors a part fee and a part percentage on the profit. So it could be 0.5%, it could be 0.75%, it could be 1%, and that this is profit percentage. So once I recover my principal amount invested in the film, then everything else for perpetuity is going to be 1% will go to that particular actor or HOD. And I think I would imagine this is like royalty, right?
Right.
Jamshed?
No, absolutely. I think it's good to hear that you've sort of managed to find a hybrid. The answer, according to me, certainly lies in the very well established music system industry that we have. If you remember, most films do take sort of music from one of these companies, or at least you have a tie-up. So that's not difficult. So to get the system in place, which I think is very, very simple. It's easy. I think it's just the lack of understanding, and and then getting all this audited as you do internationally is also it's a fairly simple process. It just looks that but and of course, I mean, if people don't want
it's intention.
If they don't, want to show, I mean, that's a different story. But I think it's very important for the system in India, again, as we are moving, and we should towards be completely on par with the global system. Royalties is absolutely a must, because no actor internationally would work without the system in place. And the other thing I was saying was, there have been so many instances of actors who died in anguish and poverty, simply because they haven't had a fallback in their old days. And I think that needs to change from that perspective as well.
Yeah. So being an actor myself, I should add this, that the actor is the driving force of the narrative, and sometimes you do films for as less as like 1,50,000. That's really not the worth of the work you've done. Because you've added creatively so much to the film, and producers do not heed that as anything. And I think that's really, it's not nice. And like he just said, so many actors have died in poverty, but they have done some tremendous work and been a part of some great stories, and imparted, given the soul to the film, and they got nothing in return, which is quite sad.
Jamshed, what does all this mean from a contractual point of view?
Uh,
What are the things that, how would you really say, I'm a talent, I don't know, I know that I'm probably entitled to royalties, but I don't know how that looks on paper.
Okay. No. So there are two aspects, and I always say that just as a lawyer, if I do wish to advise clients in the space of, say, movie making, if I do not know, for example, what a Jimmy Jib is, then sorry, I don't think I should be in that space. Similarly, I think it's extremely important for that talent should also now make themselves. However, they say no, we only want to sort of focus on the creative side. I think a little bit of basic education on from the legal perspective as well as from the financial, which is extremely important, is something that must sort of step in and come in, and that's why programs like this are extremely important. But I think what is important is you must have, as Himanshu said, a good legal backup. You must have somebody who can explain the nuances of the contract. I always say that sometimes the largest clauses in a contract are not really important. It's those little in between, sentences which sometimes make or break. And usually, also, let's come to whenever there is an issue, you must have a provision for first mediation where you can resolve it amicably, and then go to perhaps arbitration, and then of course if it has to go to court, then so be it. Of course, contractually most things can be resolved through arbitration and mediation, and you don't need to go to court. And quite often, you would like to keep it sort of within yourselves. So that's another important aspect. The only matters which will go to court compulsorily is if there is a issue on copyright, which it goes either to the district court or to the high court, depending upon which jurisdiction it is in.
Right. Himanshu, have you had any disputes with regard to ownership of rights? Any such challenges?
I think every producer, luckily, I had a friend who was a producer, and her first advice to me is, you got to understand IP, because that's what you're actually that's what you're cultivating. And luckily, I kind of I had the right people supporting me, and I understood IP, and I kept myself clean. But despite of that, I had as a producer, as a filmmaker, I had a couple of very nasty disputes on very small things, which can which could have escalated into a bad situation. Luckily, it did not. But it does happen where something in the IP is not clear, and then somebody can claim on it. And then somebody says, even if they say, well, you had sent me a message that this song is yours, or you send me a message that this material is not mine, that itself can, am I right, Jamshed? This can also be this also becomes a bad situation.
Absolutely. I think, you have to see the fortunate or the unfortunate part is that today anyone can raise a dispute. Whether he or she right or wrong comes second. So that's the problem. And, quite often it is emotional, it is ego driven, it is,
Exactly.
spur of the moment. So that's the thing. Sometimes they don't They don't even consult their lawyers.
Yeah, yeah.
So I
No,
would like
exactly.
you give us an example, and this is more for the viewers and also Jamshed and Himanshu from both your experiences. So therefore, how can one, are there any ways in which we can prevent such situations? Is there a particular checklist you go through that? Because somewhere midway, when you're making a movie, these disputes come up and it completely breaks down the process.
So I think the most important aspect is to have your legal side in place. I mean that okay, because it's I think mediation, as it is called, the process mediation conciliation, it means the same thing, where you both parties decide, as they say, what is called without prejudice to their rights and contentions, to actually come together, sit down, and find a solution. Now, that is, in fact, the mediation clause has been included even in the Commercial Courts Act now, in that even in business disputes, the legislature has found it fit that first it should be sent to mediation. And I mean, these issues by and large are not, half as sort of big, or, amounts involved are not so large. So I think mediation should always be the first, try and resolve it. And if there is a good trained mediator, I promise you that, in fact, they've been able to resolve some of the biggest, business industry, international disputes in a matter of days. So, things like this, to the satisfaction of both parties, can certainly, and some, solution, at least the person knows that, okay, this is what it is, and this is, what your stand is, right or wrong, give or take, it will sort of diffuse the situation. But of course, then it is entirely up to the party if they still feel that, no, I refuse, and I, things like that, and it has to, then perhaps you could go to the second phase, which is called arbitration. And, for those who don't know, arbitration is an alternative dispute resolution mechanism where instead of going to court, you have arbitrators who are like judges. It could be one, two, or three. And the best part about arbitration is that it can be held at any given point of time. It can be virtual also. You can have, international lawyers also involved in the process. And usually arbitration is sort of finished in a specific time frame. So therefore, it generally, much less expensive. And then, of course, if all else fails, then is the court. But always remember, courts are completely overburdened, and therefore, they should be always.
So if I may say this, I think the biggest key is to have paperwork. Okay, have airtight paperwork with a professional lawyer. And no matter how simple this sounds, but a lot of startup companies want to not spend much on legal. Am I right, Jamshed? Oh, they're like, yeah, let's just cut on that. It's okay. It's just like, oh, why do you want to pay a doctor so much money if you can go to the dispensary and just get the drug? But that is where the folly lies.
We quite often see, precedents being picked up from Google, and, now we just say that, oh, I said, I'll tell you exactly from where you've taken it. Oh, but how did you know? I said, you're experienced enough, therefore.
Yeah. I mean, I had somebody with team said, let's just Google this agreement and download it on Google. Am I right? As if, but what happens is that is where you get stuck. And I had a very bad situation with one of my members, and luckily my paperwork was tight. Otherwise, it was going to be. And what Jamshed said a bit earlier, most of these things, not most things, almost all of them is driven purely by ego or an emotional situation, which is when everybody loses their logic. I don't think there rarely must have been an actual IP conflict, where some things were said and there was not right. So I think to have good paperwork and have complete clarity of the fact that this is where this is what the material is. This is our understanding. Moment you get fuzzy on the understanding, you know, is where you lose control. Yeah, one of my colleagues, they had a little, they were confused about the IP, and I thought that lack of clarity was my fault. I should have been clear throughout, despite of the agreement being in place. And that confusion in the IP led to a bad position where they reacted emotionally. They reacted, from a not a very positive place, and then it could have been a full-out conflict.
Right. Himanshu, your short films have reached various indie film circuits and festivals. For those young filmmakers or first-time short filmmakers, what is the importance of this, and how else can they promote their films?
I think it's very important to make films all the time, and you can't always make feature films, and you don't always have a commission job as a director. So, I would say tell young filmmakers just keep making films. Now in India specifically, there is a tremendous scope of having a short films out there. Amazon has a short film section. Hotstar has a short film section. I think Woot has a short film section. So everybody is now looking at short films because they understand that sometimes that also floats with an audience. So I think every filmmaker has to go through the process of making the film and then finding the right distribution for it, and then finding the right festival to take it to, people to support it, people to talk about it. I think that's just one of the aspects that a filmmaker has to crack.
Right. And Jamshed, what would be the legalities involved, with respect to, showcasing your film across festivals and distributing it internationally?
So, of course, for international distributions, now you have, specialized agencies and persons who actually take that job up and, take it ahead. As far as, from the legal perspective is, when you send your sort of film across to, say, for a film festival, etc., there would definitely be, paperwork. There would also be sort of instances where you are given a sort of particular sort of time frame or a slot in which the film can be shown. It could, it shouldn't be that you've given it to a film festival and then somebody sort of utilizes that to actually pirate your film, because you've given them the key to have a look at the film, and that apparently used to happen quite a lot. Now especially in the US system, I've seen they're very, very particular. They actually have sections where unless you join the film festival as a subscriber or an invitee, only then are you actually able to access the film, not otherwise. I mean, you may access the trailer, but not otherwise, which is very good, and that ensures that the whole process is done. Otherwise, I think by and large the process is quite simple. There is a little bit of paperwork when you send it across. I mean, how do you send it across? Do you send it across electronically, etc.? Even sometimes if you have a few concerns about, say, your film is sort of very critical, or it is shows a particular segment of life, and there is a particular problem in a particular country, then those are the things that you need to be a little careful about, and that is where another aspect comes in, which all producers, especially sending films outside to festival, should ensure that now I believe insurance is available for such things as well. So that's something that's can be certainly looked at.
Right, Himanshu. Yes, Himanshu.
Yeah. So couple of so I've sent two festivals to festivals, two films to festivals, and besides all that Jamshed said, which is which is absolutely true, and it should be. Uh, on the ground level, I would want to add two things. A, don't send your film to shady festivals, okay? Because you don't know who is receiving your material. You don't know where the material will go, and God forbid it ends up on the worldwide net. You will lose a lot, you know. So you have to have some kind of way to find that person is a bona fide person. It's a bona fide festival, and you can always reach them. You know, we had a case of where I'd sent my film to a festival which I wasn't sure of, but luckily it was through a friend. So just when we were about to release the film, we discovered that there is a trailer on the net, you know, and suddenly we were in a panic because we didn't know who had put it in the net, whose channel it was, and we reported it on YouTube, and we had to, there was a full, it was a full,
Yes, quite a process. Yes.
quite a process, and luckily we found the person who had sent the film to, and he could take it out. But can you imagine if this happened to your film? So A, never sent to shady festivals, sent to bona fide people. B, and like Jamshed said, always have a one-pager agreement set. Thank you so much. You like me, I like you, but let's do this one-pager thing where, this is the film, this is the duration, you can play it. And after that, thank you very much. Please make sure that there is no signature left on. Am I right, Jamshed? That's what I think.
Absolutely. I mean, we've had another instance, in fact, which I may add. You've given an example about shady festivals. You had instances where somebody's come and actually sort of recorded by using a sort of a spy cam and then putting something up during a festival, and things like that, and then to actually get it off. And today, it works so quickly that we actually found the URL in another far off land, and luckily we were able to do that and get a John Doe order and stop it. But otherwise, that the company who actually put the film festival together, their contract with the company that was actually going to promote the festival after it was done would have been ruined, and they would have lost sort of millions of dollars, if I may add. So these things you have to be very, very careful about.
Himanshu, are there any legitimate directories where possibly these film festivals are located, so our viewers can possibly access those? Because what if there's just a very nicely packaged campaign and you really don't know if that generally that's how it is. So
no, there are a couple of portals that one of them is called Film Freeway, which has got all the festivals. You can any festival can upload their details on that portal and be active to accept films. Okay. Film Freeway does not assure you that it has no fact checking machine. It's just a portal. It's like YouTube. Put what you want. So, but a couple of things that you can do as a filmmaker is watch out for how long the festival has been around, who is supporting it, what is their, do they have a website? Do they have any bona fides? Do they have people supporting it? Do they have a philosophy? Do they have, if there's been previous festivals, are there images of that festival that are there? And what are the cinema halls they play in? So, you get a feel of it, and there are lots of hack festivals out there. And in fact, one big business model is that people create these festivals, put them on Film Freeway. They get, innocent filmmakers to pay them fees for entering the film into the festival, and then they just disappear. It's a good business model, actually.
Right,
but it happens.
That's a very, very, great insight, Himanshu. Himanshu, you were earlier talking about the opportunities that, digital platforms are creating. How can young filmmakers maximize these platforms?
Uh, so I think uh, they need to just tell the stories they want to tell, and know that there is a possibility. I made my feature film Chitrakoot knowing that I'll have an opportunity to put it on an OTT, and there is an audience there which I can reach. And it's not like OTT is a walk in the park. But about 10 years back, there was only a theatrical route, which is very daunting because the money is involved is too high and it's just too complex. It does not support. Does not support any what do you call outlier cinema. So luckily for now there is an OTT, and there are various kind of OTTs who support different kind of material. And I'm sure with the years to come there'll be more OTTs doing very distinct stuff for children, for horror, for this, for that. So there is scope out there, and it's very encouraging, I think. And now with digital cameras, the cost of filmmaking is also reduced, so it ultimately comes down to the person.
And how much of, percentage you think do user-generated platforms play in discoverability? So a lot of people, for example, singers, etc., right? They get noticed on user-generated platforms like YouTube. So it may not be a bad idea to even kind of put a film there. What's your take on that?
I think YouTube is a difficult place for your film to get noticed, with it's more for short content, uh, or for risque content, if I might say so. But there are a lot of smaller feature films that you and I would not have known if they were not an OTT, you know, and they probably released in their own space, and you didn't know it, but you discover it now. Like there's a film called The Great Indian Kitchen. There are a couple of other films I can think of right now, who just they were regional films, smaller films, but they were really good films. But they didn't make it. They probably won't play in a theater near you, but they were discovered on the OTT circuit, where once people start seeing it, start talking about it, and telling their friends about it, and it kind of kept going. You must see Chitrakoot when it comes. I'm banking on you for that. I'm recruiting both of you.
No, for sure. In fact, we should definitely do a discussion. I do have a whole, plan in mind where we should talk about production. Young talent just don't know how to go about things. So yes, really looking forward to that. Jamshed, we spoke about contracts, royalties, etc. I think let's try to make distinctions. What is the difference, therefore, between a production agreement, a work for hire agreement, and of course, a service agreement?
So, I mean, the nomenclature very correctly says, I mean, it is where the producer has or enters into contracts with, different stakeholders. So, I mean, a production agreement, of course, would contain, with between a producer, maybe there is of course, you have a line producer. You could also have, a studio involved. So then the studio would become a party to that, and it could, essentially. I mean, let's be clear. A contract is a contract. Those clauses might differ or vary a little bit, but in essence, these sort of the structure will always remain the same. So I'm not going to sort of repeat that. Of course, again, a work for hire is normally what an actor enters into, and it's very sort of clear. In fact, some of the most amazing contracts that you see. I mean, I've seen them on. We have a sort of legal database called LexisNexis. So if you actually enter into one of those and you get a chance, you should take a look, where during the shoot, orange juice at a particular temperature, towels at a particular temperature. All those things, the nitty-gritties are sort of mentioned. It's amazing how detailed it can be. Of course, in India, it's perhaps, not so detailed, but it is there. I mean, from the makeup person who's supposed to be on call, and so many little. So it's the whole schedule basically that's put in and captured in a contract. So as and that forms, as what Himanshu was saying, part of detailed paperwork. So you have that. It is in front of you. You're signing it. You know how much time to give, and that at the end of the day, and that brings in professionalism basically. And also the other important thing is, please remember, a contract can certainly be varied. If there is trouble, there is difficulty, there is an act of God, there is a problem, there are clauses which actually take care of this. It's not that, an actor has to run and say, oh, something has happened, and therefore the contract itself could take care of those circumstances. Not all, but at least the generic few. So I think you mentioned, and a service agreement would be for all the other ancillary services that and there is an entire crew that is so. I mean, there can be close to 100 or 150 different types of agreements if you really break it up with different people. And of course, the other thing is, remember, because a lot of films now are shot in part abroad. So if that happens, then there will be, separate agreements with the line producer in that country. Then, if you're applying for tax credits, then those agreements are separate. And if you take a loan from a bank, those agreements are separate. So it's a huge, 24/7, framework that actually goes into it. It can look very daunting, but I think it's essential. The objective is to ensure that the whole production goes as smoothly as possible and finishes on time.
Any challenges you faced here, Himanshu, with regard to such agreements? I'm just thinking about what Jamshed said, where the temperature is mentioned, etc. My question is also if talent can actually insist. I'm not saying insist on those kind of nitty-gritties, but how much of say does an actor have when it comes to the organizational things with regard to contracts?
Once you hire an actor, okay, till the time you don't start shooting, they're slave to you. Once you shot 2-3 days, then you're slave to them. It's a very, very delicate relationship because in the middle of the shoot, if an actor loses, kind of gets unreasonable on you, it's very difficult because you've already shot half the film, you invested so much money on it. So, when I started my film, I have a lot of friends who are very well-to-do actors, who are famous, who are popular, but I didn't approach them for this reason, because you need to find the people who are in the right space and time in their life to work on your project, and not get into this, I want hot coffee, or I want this and I want that, because either you have that and you have that understanding, and you have to budget for it, because everything costs. To reach them a orange juice at a particular time will cost money. So I think it's a very, very apt question you asked, and it's a very scary answer. That in the end, if you, in my first film, the biggest key is the human factor, where people will do it simply because they believe in the material and they want to be in that material, and it is a collective effort, and that team spirit is what is very important for every individual to have in the film, and I think that matters a lot, where the human value,
And the collective goal to make a success.
And the collective goal, yeah, and that whole thing, it's not moment any people start to get like, touchy about what am I getting and what I show, and you said this and I said that. You're in a bad zone, and anything can happen after that. And I have been on enough films to know how a badly behaved actor can actually ruin the film. Uh, and those things cannot be controlled legally, to be really honest.
Right. Right. So to conclude, Himanshu, what advice can you give young filmmakers or, filmmakers that have done very well here? What are the things that they can do to, take their content internationally?
I think just make courageous films, make strong content, and I would say one important aspect is to also think like a producer. A lot of filmmakers want to just direct, which is not enough. You have to be as good a producer. You have to understand that, first of all, you have to respect the producer, respect the role of a producer. Before I became a producer, I was a director, and I thought producer is a chump who's just, whatever, organizing stuff, which is not true. Even being a producer has got its challenges. It's a creative field. It's a very delicate field. And you have to be as good a producer as a director if you want your material to go out there. You have to understand that, or have a producer who's good, who's a true producer. It's a very distinct role.
Thank you so much, Himanshu, Jamshed. This was a great conversation, and hope to have most, engaging conversations like this in the future.
Thank you so much. This is lovely. Thank you, James. See you, Jamshed.
See you. Thank you.
Bye. Lovely.